I remember as a kid playing Ocarina of Time on the Nintendo 64. I remember that so many of the bosses would give me nightmares as a kid, but the final boss especially was something truly epic to behold. However, the creators have said that the original idea for the final fight against Ganon when he went beast mode was to have the player climb him and fight on him as he would be a massive hulking creature. This of course was scrapped due to limitations, but my mind always wondered what that fight would have been like, since to this day, we haven't seen a Zelda boss like it, even though we probably should have. When I first saw the gameplay of Shadow of the Colossus, my first thought was, holy shit, this game looks like ass. Then I thought, is this the next Zelda game? Are we finally going to fight a boss in that way? Unfortunately, no. But it was this other game that I had never heard of, and that's where my curiosity stopped. Until they released the remastered version and ho 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 ho! Woo! This looks awesome! Wow, I can't wait to play. Oh, it's only on PlayStation. And I only ever had an Xbox at the time. So that was where my curiosity died yet again. Until I picked it up recently and man oh man, it's a game. We begin the game with a scenic backdrop as our character and hero, who doesn't really have a name, Jimbo, rides his horse, Aburo? Screw it, Andrew, into a distant land with ancient looking structure in the distance. After watching a 7-minute long cutscene about walking, we finally see that Jimbo grave robbed some poor girl and intends to bring her back to life through this place and some special sword that he found in his parents' basement, I think. Gentlemen, take notes. Then what I can only assume is God tells Jimbo that he must defeat all the giants of the land called Colossi, and God will grant us our wish. It's a simple setup, and so we start the game from there. I should mention that this game is supposedly a prequel to the game Echo, whatever. But I haven't played it yet, so I don't know if there is some sort of context that you're missing with the other stuff going on, so I just mostly ignored it. Generally though, I never felt lost with this story because it is so simple. So I don't think someone like me who doesn't even know what eco is will get lost either. Whether that is a compliment or not, I'll let you decide. Looking at this game compared to the original is like looking at yourself in the mirror when you wake up versus that hot girl who's way out of your league. I mean, I'm not trying to be mean, you just need to take a shower, bro. I mean, it isn't even a competition as to what looks better. The comparison shots of this game are insane, and every new area you go to gives you that feeling when you see something interesting after a long hike. Even the transitions from cutscene to gameplay are so smooth that you'd think they were made of softened butter. But I will admit that the swimming animations and gameplay reminded me more of that one meme rather than what they actually hoped it looked like. Everything has this massive scale to it, like you are a tiny ant exploring my backyard until you stumble upon the massive turd I left out there as if it were some kind of ancient relic. The camera helps emphasize this by frequently zooming out and showing you just how big the world around you is. The art style almost reminds me of a Zelda game in some ways, but a more realistic take rather than whatever the hell was going on with Twilight Princess. However, for me, the graphics aren't everything, and although the art style is fantastic and the world is interesting and visually appealing to explore, there just isn't that much worth exploring. But anyways, let's get past the last thing on my list before we actually talk about the game itself. The game sounds fantastic. I mean, when it does have sound. One of the first things you'll notice as you take that leisurely stroll to the first boss is just how quiet and reserved this game is. Oftentimes you get these bombastic, symphonic, beautiful pieces that play when you're fighting a boss, but when you're out in the world, oftentimes it's as quiet as Dark Souls. Maybe even quieter. Not that silence bothers me, as I think that more games need to become more comfortable with using silence. I think it can bring about really powerful effects when you do have a lot more bombastic noises. But here it is just maybe a little bit too quiet, But I don't know, I'll let everyone else be the judge of that. At the very least, however, each sound is crisp and clear, so you won't find any annoying sounds or music that grades on your ears. And I just have to mention the menu sounds, because they just sound so satisfying. So now, how does the gameplay compare to the graphics? The gameplay of Shadow of the Colossus is actually pretty simple. Of all the things that Bluepoint remastered for this game when it was released for the PS4, the gameplay wasn't one of them, for better or for worse. Each section starts the same way. God tells you about the next boss and the type of area that they are hiding in. Then you use a light reflection thing from your sword to see where they are and right Andrew to the boss. Sometimes you might feel a little lost for where they are, but in my experience, most of the bosses are very straightforward and usually have a big obvious path to them. There are things to find throughout the world like lizards, save points, and fruit trees, but I didn't even know that they were something you could interact with because this game basically never gives you button prompts for anything. Here's a clip of me struggling to find out which button to press to use the save station in the first place because the first time I see one, it doesn't tell me how to interact with it, or even if I can. I know that some people will say that, oh, this is a good thing because it doesn't have hand-holding. And to that extent, I want you to remember that this game does have tutorials, just not all the time. Every game will spend at least the beginning to tell you how to play the game before it lets loose, so don't give me that excuse. If you want a game that has zero handholding, go play System Shock. Not 2 or the remaster, although I would love to talk about both one day, but the original. This is a game that has no handholding. You press play, select a difficulty, and bam, you're in. No tutorials, no button prompts, you will have to look through a wiki page of settings just to play through the opening room. But I'm getting carried away now. As it stands, I think this game could use some more tutorial or button prompt stuff. Not that it matters that much because I went through the entire first playthrough without getting any of the extra stuff, mind you. If anything, that shows you that the game is maybe too easy, and probably could have benefited from having more reason for me to go Google what the hell the lizards do in the first place. Anyways, once you find the boss, the real gameplay starts, and I will admit, this is actually the fun part. Each boss is like a puzzle in some way. You have to find its weakness, find out how to trigger it, climb it while it tries to shake you off, and eventually stab it to death with what would be the equivalent of stabbing your best friend to death with a knife the size of a toothpick. The scale of the beasts is really good, and the bosses that aren't that big tended to be my least favorite ones to fight. Although there were some that were very close to each other that I wouldn't mind a reimagining of either. Luckily, the other bosses felt like these epic cinematic fights that you would expect to be a predetermined sequence or QuickTime event in other games, but not here. While I wouldn't recommend every aspect of this game to everyone, most of these boss fights are A tier for style alone. I think that making more of their attacks be more damaging and quicker would be more fun, as the only real difference that I noticed from hard mode was the amount of damage they dealt. But how slow these guys attack, you would have to try to get hit by most of these swings, which is admittedly disappointing. A mod or remake of this game's ideas to make the bosses as cinematic but as challenging as Dark Souls bosses would really make me foam at the mouth. I enjoyed most of the fights like I said, but most of the stuff in between just felt a bit boring to me, even midway through my first playthrough, which is maybe why I didn't do much of it. Luckily, after you beat the game, you get time trial modes, which allow you to replay any of the fights without replaying the entire game. Not that it is a long game, I beat the first time in 5 hours, but still. The only thing that has to do with unlocks that was really weird to me is the extras tab. It's where I showed those comparison images. What makes it weird is that you have to beat the game on a specific difficulty to unlock everything. So if you beat everything on hard mode but want to see it all, you now have to beat it again on easy mode. It just doesn't make sense, and I couldn't be bothered to do it. The next bit is going to be about the story, which isn't very extensive, but I'll still place a spoiler warning for those that care here. Now, for those that don't care, the story only got really interesting for the last few minutes. 7, to be exact, actually. Like I said before, there isn't much story aside from God telling you where to go and what to kill each time. So each time Jimbo kills something, some kind of black ooze passes through his body and seems to possess him with some kind of black figure. If you see where this is going before I say it, then you very much experienced the same thing I did. Turns out that after all the Colossi are dead, they possessed and took over Jimbo, turning into one giant demon Colossi thing. Who would have guessed? Some guys from PETA showed up way too late to the party trying to stop Jimbo because they knew something like this would happen and were right about it, for once. They managed to stop you and destroy the evil, which is a kind of cool scene as you desperately try to hold on for dear life until it's all over. But anyways, the dead chick wakes up, finds a half-baby demon hybrid, and walks to the roof to start another game. I don't really know, to be honest. The story of these games is a little lost on me. As far as anyone is concerned, this could be Spider-Man PS1. I am glad I finally took the time to play this game. It's been on my list for a long time, and I did enjoy the time I spent with it. I think if you can find a cheap way to play the Jimbo vs. PETA simulator, go ahead. If you aren't a fan of puzzle games or you're looking for more of a challenge, maybe pass on this one. Anyways, that's all I got for you now. Next video will hopefully be out in a month now that I'm done moving. And if you like this kind of video, be sure to let me know by leaving a like and consider subscribing. And if you want to see more stuff like this, let me know in the comments as to what you want to see me review next. I only get a couple, so I do read them. See ya!